I want to start with a quote from our report for the colleagues who think that we are now suddenly going to defend the climate change. I want to make a small quote, if you bear with me about 15 seconds. We write in our report, continuing on today's energy path without any change in government policy would mean rapidly increasing dependence on fossil fuels with alarming consequences for climate change. And this comes from the report of the World Energy Outlook report in the year 2009. So since years, International Energy Agency has highlighted the critical importance of climate change for all of us. Why? Very simple. More than 80% of the emissions causing climate change come from the energy sector. So without fixing the problem in the energy sector, we have no chance whatsoever to address the climate change. And as the Global Energy Authority, IEA, we thought we should this year make this report, as several governments around the world recently came up with net zero 2050 target. Now, let me start with a few things. Government targets. Today, when you look at the numbers, more than 70% of the global emissions are under the net zero commitment of the governments. It's a big thing. US, Canada, UK, all European countries, in fact, Japan, Korea, China, Brazil, they all have commitments. This is a very good thing. But, this is number one but. As I said at the President Biden's Leaders Summit, there is a growing gap between the rhetoric and what is happening in the real life. So many governments are saying this year, one after another announcements, net zero 2050, and again this year, 2021, according to our numbers, global emissions will increase at a record level, second highest increase in the history. So the year that the governments make the commitments is the year we see the second largest increase of emissions in the history. So there is a big gap between what the governments say and currently what is happening in the real life. So it is the reason I have decided this September, last September, two major groups in the IEA, the group that produces the World Energy Outlook, as people call it, the Bible of the energy, and another report, which we call Energy Technology Perspectives, brought these groups together and said, let's see if we can have a comprehensive roadmap for the energy sector in order to reach net zero. What we try to do, dear colleagues, is a simple, very simple thing. It's a very complicated modeling, but if I can make it very simple. We have merely only translated government targets to what needs to happen in the energy sector, this to happen, to reach those targets. We have not set the targets, governments set the targets, and before governments, of course, scientists told us, governments follow the net zero. We said, if the governments were to reach those targets, the translation, simple translation, is this needs to happen in the energy sector. And again, as we say in our report, we do not say that this is the what we came out, the pathway. we say this is a pathway. Depending on the country's circumstances, depending on the pace of technology, this may change, but we want to give a broad roadmap. Now, you mentioned in the beginning, some of you know our work since years. I have made a lot of reports with my colleagues here, but I have never seen such an influential report the IEA has. Currently, in addition to our normal clients, quote unquote, the energy world, we have now the climate world working with us. We have the finance. This is very important. The finance world is suddenly, IEA has a completely new challenge from the central banks to the investors, from investors to others. We are getting request after request, cooperation suggestions from cooperation. Many things, and we are very happy. But the countries I said are different in nature. We talk about the race to net zero. This is the UK government's, how shall I say, the motto. But, 3 buts. 1, not all the countries start this race from the same place. Some are in front of the others. In terms of their economy, their technology, whatever it is, this is one difference. Second, the race is not between the countries. The race is against the time. This is I want to highlight. Race is against the time. And third, unless everybody finishes the race, nobody wins the race. This is important. We have to get this. It's a global issue. We have to get this in mind, in my personal view. Now, the report is freely downloadable in our website, but I want to give you for the governments, for the industry, for the citizens, for the investors, we give, if I may say so, in quote, homeworks, and if I can give the homework divided into 3 major groups, what needs to happen between now and 2050. Number 1, especially in the next 10 years, make the most out of the currently available clean energy technologies which are in the market. What are those? Solar, onshore wind, offshore wind, efficiency, electric cars, massive expansion of those options we have in hand globally. It's the first homework. Homework number 2. There are technologies that we badly need, but they are still under development. They are not a part of the market, such as advanced battery technologies, such as several hydrogen applications, such as the carbon capture family. In addition to the first one, massive expansion of the existing technologies, the second homework we have is pushing the innovation button and bring these technologies to the market, because we need them badly, especially in the areas such as some industry solutions, some solutions for the long-haul transportation and others. So this is the second homework. Third, and the last, and I made 3 broad categories. Homework we have, I believe, is the strong decline of fossil fuel use around the world, starting with coal. So this is the third homework. And as a result of that, if those things happen, and we have in detail all of them in our report, what kind of energy world we see in 2050? We see an energy world which is dominated by renewable energies, solar, offshore wind, onshore wind, and electricity becomes the single largest source of energy in transportation, industry, and buildings. Okay. Now, is this possible? They ask me, is this possible? So I don't know if it is possible or not, but when I look at the numbers, the pathway to net zero is extremely difficult, but still achievable if we have an international collaboration around the world. Plus, a couple of numbers. I tried to not to give many numbers, but I have to give a couple of numbers to put the challenge in our minds so that people don't think that everything is solved because I published a report. So, today, our energy world invests every year about $2 trillion US, 2 trillion for oil, gas, coal, renewables, electricity grids, everything, $2 trillion. In order to go to this 2050 net zero, two things need to happen. One, this 2 trillion needs to go up to 5 trillion. Not only that, second, today, bulk of the investments go to fossil fuels, and in this, of the 5 trillion, big chunk, overwhelming chunk need to go to clean energy technologies. We look at the economic and jobs implication of this together with IMF. In terms of economy, as a result of the surge, unprecedented historical surge from 2 to 5 trillion, if it happens, we see that the global economy would increase an additional annual 0.4 percentage point additional growth. And we also expect that the job markets will be affected from that. We expect, because of the new construction, engineering, new manufacturing lines, there will be additional 30 million new jobs added, but about 5 million jobs will be lost, especially in those countries and communities where the use, production and use of fossil fuels is at the center of employment. Of course, this 30 million, 5 million, different countries, different locations, you cannot compare them. It is the reason we put the very important emphasis on the very fact that the clean energy transitions should be for and about the people, and what needs to be done, especially for those countries who would suffer from that. Now, another implication for the oil-producing countries, especially those countries whose economies are heavily indexed to oil and gas revenues, especially those in Middle East, in Russia, and elsewhere. We see that their economies will be negatively affected, seriously affected, because of the decline of oil production and demand, and second, decline, therefore, in the oil prices. Plus, in those countries, young population growth is spectacular. So unemployment will be an issue. We have been discussing with many producing countries since a few years the clear need of diversification of their economies, and some of them said they will diversify. We didn't see much. Some of them are doing some good job. But also, for example, European countries will also, their economies will be badly hit. About 10%, more than 10% of the tax revenues in Europe comes from the sales of oil products. There will be also 10% is a big thing. I mean, in France, where I live, there was a small change, very minimal compared to 10% change in France, and we have this the movement of Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests movement in France. So I am talking about a very big change there. So I would like to finish by giving you a couple of flavor what needs to happen in order to reach there. Because what we have done, dear colleagues, not only today and 2050 or 2030, but we have created more than 400 milestones. What needs to happen in the energy world, and when do they need to happen, to show the people how difficult this is, but maybe still achievable. I'll give you a couple of examples on that. Now, since we talked with Norway, electric cars, according to our numbers in Norway this year, or perhaps last year, 75% of the all car sales are electric in Norway. This is the data. We say in the world, to reach the net zero, about 60% of all the car sales in 2030 should be electric cars. So Norway today, 75%, world 2030, 60%. Or 2040, half of the aviation fuels should be so-called sustainable aviation fuels, synthetic fuels, advanced biofuels, and others, just to give you an example. The 95% of the electricity generation, renewable energies. And if you translate, I said more than 400 of those measures, I can go on. But if you translate those things on the supply side, we think as of end of 2021, there will not be need for any new additional oil and gas fields or new coal mines. This is important because of the demand is going down. So some people mix it. They think our one and only outcome is no new oil and gas fields. This is the result of the demand side measures we set to bring the emissions to net zero, such as the penetration of electric cars, such as what happens in the aviation sector. As a result of this demand, there is no need for new additional oil and gas fields. So, and also coal mines. So, dear colleagues, these are some thoughts based on our report. I am sure you can imagine we have received a lot of interest from Norway, Norwegian press, Norwegian colleagues. I didn't talk to Norwegian press yet. I will do it in the next few days. We have a lot of interest there. But since we arranged this meeting, I think months ago, it happened to be right after our report. It is the first time that I had the privilege or the pleasure to share with you some of our findings, and I will be very happy to get your questions, comments, and others. So thank you very much once again for listening to me. Thank you.